As he hurried along Whitehall, Harry's feet were as damp as they had been during the Kent winters of his childhood. But that was no surprise. They'd seen nothing but rain for weeks. Wimbledon had been a washout, Lord's looked like an ornamental lake, the trains ran intermittently, if at all, and the bus he had travelled to work on this morning might have been surfing over the river. He ran up Downing Street, banged hard on Britain's most famous door, and stepped briskly into the hall as soon as it was opened. He shook his umbrella on the flagstones by the entrance. "Sorry, bloody weather," he grumbled apologetically. The porter returned his smile and took the umbrella without complaint. "Harry Tower, here to see the Prime Minister?" "Yes, sir. I believe you know the way." Harry hurried down the hall and took the stairs 3 at a time. He was waved through by the secretary and eased into the study quietly. It was much too small to arrive unnoticed. Winston Churchill sat slumped in the chair by his desk, smoking one of his infamous cigars and looking every one of his 79 years. Ed Haddon and William Oswald, Harry's colleagues in the Secret Intelligence Service Operations Department, stood before a map of Tehran on the far side of the desk. "You recall Harry Tower," Ed Haddon said. "We asked him to attend because he had some direct experience in Tehran at the end of the war." Harry was tempted to ask why they had excluded him from the planning of this operation and all communication with the Americans, but he managed to bite his tongue. "I'm old, not senile," Churchill shot back. "Sit," he ordered Harry, as if he wished to have company at the level of his steely gaze. "Go on," he growled at Haddon. "Just before midnight, Colonel Nasri will arrive here to arrest Prime Minister Mossadegh." Haddon was pointing at the map of central Tehran. "The PM will no doubt attempt to call out the military to prevent his removal from power, but when he attempts to contact General Riahi, the Chief of Staff, he will find no one at home." Haddon tried a smile. It made him look constipated. Churchill had that effect on people. "Colonel Nasri and his detachment of the Imperial Guard will already have called there to arrest the general, too," Haddon continued. "On whose authority?" "The Americans have persuaded the Shah to sign a firman, an executive order to appoint General Zahedi, a close ally of the royal family, to replace Mr. Mossadegh as Prime Minister. The arrests will be carried out on General Zahedi's orders after the firman has taken effect." "Is the order legal?" Haddon looked at Oswald nervously. Harry had learnt long ago that Winston Churchill would forgive most things, but not being lied to. "That's a matter of opinion, Prime Minister," Haddon replied. "I'd guessed that," Churchill said with heavy sarcasm. "So, whose opinion should I rely upon?" "It's true that under Iran's constitution," Haddon went on smoothly, "the Shah cannot technically remove or appoint a prime minister without the consent of the Iranian parliament. But we are confident our colleagues in the CIA, using our contacts of course, have raised the fear of a communist takeover to such a fever pitch in Tehran that this move will be widely welcomed, or at least accepted, by the Iranian people." "This coup, you mean?" Churchill replied. It wasn't offered as a criticism. The Prime Minister loved nothing more, Harry knew, than his part in the great game of international relations, especially when it was to be carried out in such a nakedly cloak-and-dagger fashion. "A transfer of power, Prime Minister." Haddon treated him to the more confident trademark grin that had once made him the darling of the SIS typing pool. Harry tried hard to suppress a smile of his own. He knew the Prime Minister well enough to be certain he would be impervious to Haddon's oleaginous charm.